Welcome to BW Healthcare World. Today is World Obesity Day, and we will be discussing the obesity prevalence. How are we battling it, and where are we supposed to go in terms of the prevalence and the management of obesity? We'll also be talking about the link between obesity and diabetes and what therapies or drugs may be beneficial in treating diabetes. Now, let me introduce my two guests on the panel today. We have Dr. Arpandev Bhattacharyya, a senior endocrinologist, Manipal Hospital. And we're also joined by Mr. Vikrant Shrotriya, who's the corporate vice president and managing director at Novo Nordisk India. Once again, welcome, panelists, for joining us, giving your time here. Now, before I begin asking questions to you, about obesity, let me throw some light on a recent report which has come out day before yesterday by World Obesity Federation, which states that by 2035, close to 4 billion people on the planet will be overweight and obese, which roughly translates to 50% of the world's population. Now, according to the same report, in 2020, this number was somewhere around 2.6 billion and translating to 38% of the population, which will now become by 2035 to 50%. Now, the report clearly states that while the West and more developed economies will see their increasing prevalence level trend declining, but the opposite is supposed to happen in low-income countries like India, Pakistan, and Indonesia. If we get into the specifics of India, annual increase in adult obesity between 2020 to 2035 will be around 5.2%, which is touted as very high. An annual increase in child obesity between 2020 to 2035 will be 9.1%, which is higher than the adult one. First, I want to know your thoughts. Let me start with Dr. Bhattacharya first. Dr. Bhattacharya, tell us what is your view on this, and also what are the trends that you're witnessing in terms of obesity in India? What is the prevalence level according to you? Tell us.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Shivam. I think this is a very serious issue. Now, one point of time, for example, when we were young, we used to see the parents are telling my child is healthy. The message used to give is that if you are overweight, you are healthy. We know it is completely the opposite. Overweight causes a lot of problem. I'm sure you'll be asking some question on that point of view, so I'll not go to that. But the prevalence of overweight and obesity is definitely increasing. There is a particular criteria, medical criteria used called body mass index, which is the ratio between your height and weight with a particular formula. Now, we measure the body mass index or BMI. We find that this particular person is overweight or obese. That means we have three categories: normal weight, then overweight, then obese. It is certainly increasing. The best way, if you want to document this, will be to go and stand outside any school. Just any school. You just see how many people are over, how many children are overweight that are coming out of the school. If you can keep an eye when you are going to see a cricket match or a movie hall or a shopping mall or wherever, you can see that. Now, so for the prevalence is concerned, we don't have a full data of our population, but certainly it will be not less than 15 to 20% as of now, and it is much more common in the cities. But here is the twist. There are two types of obesity. Initially, we used to tell about thin fat Indian. So we are thin, BMI is correct, but we are fat in the tummy. That is, we call it visceral obesity or abdominal obesity. And here is all our problem with metabolic syndrome comes. Whether we talk about insulin resistance or diabetes or blood pressure or uric acid or cardiac problem, all of them comes from the increased amount of fat in the abdomen, inside the abdomen, not the below the skin, inside the abdomen. That's called the visceral obesity. So coming to the point, your question on the point, yes, prevalence is increasing, no doubt about that, and we need to do something very serious to stop the pandemic.
They're calling it the next pandemic because it's supposed to increase. And tell us about the risk factors. You already spoke about a few. We have a prominent one in diabetes. Tell us the risk factor. Tell us about that and other risk factors of obesity and how it is linked with them.
Okay, obesity itself is a very complex disorder. It's a multifactorial heterogeneous disorder. One point will not be there. So some of them we call is a irreversible risk factor that we cannot change. For example, there is a genetic background is there. Okay, some genetic particular type of the familial obesity that you cannot change. You can't change your family. Second, particular areas of the world, if you see, particularly the Southeast Asian region, it is much more. They are also more or less a bit irreversible. But more than that, you and me need to concentrate on the reversible risk factor for the obesity. That is calorie consumption, exercise, maintaining a happy and healthy living style. That is what is more important. Calorie consumption has to be improved. The fast food, although all of us will be going gaga about the fast food, all of us will be taking, not that anybody will be waiting, stopping it, but it's very, very important that we understand as a whole family that among the fast food calorie is actually straight goes into obesity. Weight gain happens. Regular exercise is very, very important. Now, what exercise you do, what is possible, how long you do, depends on your condition, all important. Sedentary lifestyle, smoking, overindulgence of alcohol, more than medically permissible amount, this all can make a good important risk factors for the obesity.
Right. So what are the, let's get into the treatments. You've spoken about the cardiac diseases that it leads to, that diabetes that it leads to. Studies say that, it is 80%, in 80% of cases, it leads to obesity leads to diabetes. What are the modern treatment options and therapies which are available, which can treat obesity and manage diabetes?
Okay, so we are talking about two things, diabetes and obesity. Now, if you see whole of diabetes population, type 2 diabetes population, that is adult diabetes population, around 50 to 60% are overweight or obese. If you see whole of the obese people, 50% will have that some glucose intolerance. So basically, they are very much linked together. So our first treatment has to be a physiological treatment, which will mean we'll make a good nutritional support. We are going to reduce the calorie consumption, but at the same time, we need to eat a balanced diet, correct amount of protein, correct amount of fiber, adequate amount, drinking adequate amount of water. These all are very important. Then doing a regular exercise. This has to be there in our background. Second, we will come to the pharmacological therapy. Now, if you think of type 2 diabetes and obesity, about the treatment of the glycemic status, initially our concentration was only for the glucose control. And that is very important. I'm not trying to ignore that, because you have diabetes, you need to control diabetes. There's nothing wrong in that. But we realized over the time, just maintaining a good glucose control in the medicine is not good enough. We need to break this obesity, diabetes, that link very clearly. We need to lose weight. The good news is that there are certain medicines are there for diabetes which can cause little weight gain. Some of them are weight neutral, but now we have some medicines which can cause a significant amount of weight loss. One of the group is called SGLT2 inhibitor that can cause around 2 to 3 kg of weight loss in most of the people. But newer invention of a group of medicine, which we are talking about GLP-1 receptor analog, that is the name of the group of the medicine, they causes a very significant weight loss. Now, it used to be available in once a day injection. Now it is available also once in a week injection. But another good news is that the oral version of that is available. It's called Semaglutide, oral Semaglutide. So we need to take the tablet every day once in the morning. Now, this is given for people with diabetes and obesity. Sorry, I'm coughing. Diabetes and obesity. Also, this has been licensed in US to treat only people with obesity without diabetes. The injectable version, which is not yet available to us, called injectable semaglutide once in a week, that causes a very significant weight loss. There is another molecule, a combination molecule, which is in the pipeline of the research of the Novo Nordisk, which is will be available soon within a year or two. That will make real miracle improvement of the weight loss.
Right. So we have to balance it out between the medicines and the physical exercise, and then we have options for reducing weight with medicines also, and probably there'll be an injectable available soon. Let me come to Mr. Shrotriya now. Mr. Shrotriya, tell me what, according to you, is the current challenge in treatment options for diabetes and weight management? Dr. Bhattacharya talked about we have medicines now, but there are people, when it comes to using medicines for obesity, they might have some apprehensions in their mind whether this will work or not. So, what do you think are the current challenges in treatment options for diabetes and weight management?
Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Shivam. First of all, we are a company with diabetes presence now in India, and obesity is the area where we will be embarking very soon with the launch of an obesity drug. Now, when it comes to diabetes and obesity, the challenges are actually almost similar. One, the challenge is almost the awareness level. Like, we have been there in diabetes, so we know the awareness of diabetes, specifically the type 2 diabetes, was far too less. Awareness for obesity, and Dr. Arpandev actually talked about it, is far too less. Having a little more weight is actually very cool. It's the uncommon thing has become very, very common. And when becoming overweight, when half the population is overweight or obese, as you actually talked about, 4 billion people by 2035 will be obese or overweight, then you think that half the population, 1 by 2, is actually obese. So that means it is just a very common thing. So the challenge is to realize that this common thing is not normal. It is abnormal. Having higher weight has got a repercussion on your metabolic rearrangement. And then comes the treatment. Why there is any skepticism on the treatment is because there was virtually no treatment available. When it comes to weight, it has been always assumed it's an energy balance. You eat less or you spend more, and then you can manage your weight. But that's not true, because you can't defeat your genes. It is not such a simple kind of weight hemostasis. Is as complex, if at all not more, than like blood hemostasis. It's a very complex, multifactorial rearrangement which actually happens. So when that is the stage, okay, and when the common misconception is fasting has been very common in India. You fast, you can reduce energy, then you can reduce weight. You exercise, then you can. But it's not all the time you can reduce the weight. It is the triad of the three: diet, exercise. And we never say that diet, exercise is not important. In fact, they are important even in healthy human beings. Diet, exercise. But this pharmacotherapy, which was a missing element virtually, there was few medications, but when they very little effect, this in-between pharmacotherapy was missing from the scene. There was no therapy available. When there was no therapy available, then of course, there was nothing by which people can treat. So the entire skepticism that you can take some kind of a medication and the weight can reduce, of course, will take longer amount of time for everybody to understand that, yes, now there is a pharmacological intervention which actually can help in reducing weight along with lifestyle intervention, which is also very important, like in a healthy human being. And I hope and believe when people will see the data of some of the newer medications which are there on the horizon in terms of the launches in India, when they will see the data that 15-16% weight can get reduced, I think that will be the time when doctors, patients will actually have much more faith in that. And that's not small. Try reducing a couple of kgs and it comes back within a week. So it is something to talk about, having a reduction of 15-16% by pharmacotherapy. I think that is a good news for a lot of people who have got a disorder of weight.
Right. Now you're making a big statement here, and you have the data with you to support that 15 to 16% of a person's weight can be reduced with the pharmacological medicines and stuff. So you've been running a campaign relating to that. Tell us about that. Tell us the data that you've accumulated, and what is the time frame to reduce that 15 to 16% of weight? How longer should one have to take the medicine to reduce that amount of weight?
Yeah. First of all, a minor correction that our campaign is not about the weight reduction. It is about breaking the partnership between diabetes and weight, because they both slightly coexist. And Dr. Arpandev actually talked about it. He actually, virtually half the people who have diabetes have got higher weight. In fact, if 3 people have got overweight or obesity, one is actually having diabetes. So there are enough patients who are overweight with diabetes. And today's therapy need to address glycemic control. Along with glycemic control, people are talking about having a cardiovascular safety. Along with cardiovascular safety, doctors are talking about how to reduce also weight. So it's not just glucose centricity. It's also what can also potentially reduce weight in diabetic people. We actually launched oral semaglutide, which is for glycemic control. But along with the glycemic control, it also helps reducing the weight in people with diabetes. And that is what the kind of partnership which we want to break. And I think when we have now completed 100 years, we have got into another dimension in terms of the overall diabetes control, which is not just HbA1c, which is other parameters which should also be controlled. And I would say even triglycerides, even cholesterol, the blood pressure, the weight should be reduced. It's multifactorial aspect should get corrected. And that is what diabetes later on affect to. So I think we are talking about the treatment which is more holistic rather than just directed towards only one particular angle.
So you talked about semaglutide, and you talked about this is a diabetes medicine which also controls obesity. So can this also work for only obese people who don't have diabetes?
No, the clear answer is no. It is not indicated for people with obesity alone. That is another thing that we are having the trial running in higher strength for also treatment in obesity. It is right now only indicated for diabetes.
Right. What is the cost of that medicine? Can you tell us?
Yeah, it costs in the range of 300 rupees per day. So approximately 10,000 rupees per month for a treatment.
Right. Let me come back to you, Dr. Bhattacharya. We've been talking about obesity and diabetes. If obesity is linked with diabetes, then why don't some morbidly obese people have diabetes?
That's a good question. Now, as I tried to tell you, diabetes is a very complex and heterogeneous disorder. Just 1+1 linking for pathogenicity of diabetes is not easy. It's like obesity. There are genetic risk factors are there, familial background is there, where you are there, then your lifestyle is there, then other abnormality. So what happens is that, for example, your weight is fine, okay? So once you eat, your pancreas gets the signal that your blood sugar gone up, pancreas give a bit more insulin, sugar comes down. That should be normal. That should happen to you. But what happened to the obese people, that this response to the insulin can be defective, and also the insulin doesn't work in the peripheral cell, what we call as the insulin resistance. So most of the people who we see, we are talking about type 2 diabetes and obesity, they are insulin resistant. But in that way, your question is very valid. Somebody is overweight, but the blood sugar is completely normal. That's because their system is like this. When your weight goes up, body requires more insulin and pancreas is coping to give more insulin so that sugar is maintained. Obviously, at the beginning. So if it goes to 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it will happen that pancreas will get exhausted. They will give a less insulin. Automatically, sugar is going to go up. So by telling somebody who is morbidly overweight has to have diabetes, not true. We are not trying to tell that. But their chance of development of type 2 diabetes in future will be much more common than people who are lean. That is our mainly obesity campaign and the need for treatment and awareness for the obesity.
Right, right. Can losing weight guarantee you to cure diabetes, type 2 diabetes?
Well, the word cure is a bit difficult word for metabolic disorder. This is a very common question. Every day we encounter. My standard answer is there. The letter C is for care and control rather than cure. The cure word in the medical science mostly used for an infective disorder. You have a urinary tract infection, you have treated infection, you're cured. You have a lung tuberculosis, treat the tuberculosis, cured. You may have some cancer which has been totally treated, eradicated, you have been cured. But giving a cure certificate for diabetes or high blood pressure or high cholesterol is a bit difficult. I know there are a lot of campaign, a lot of misinformation I may tell in the going on media about somebody is curing diabetes. Better we should talk about caring and the controlled diabetes. Coming to your question, weight loss will certainly benefit, no doubt about that. Weight loss is very important. If you lose your weight, you'll see your sugars coming down from 3 medicine. You can come back to 2 medicine to 1 medicine. When no medicine, it can come back. If you use significant weight loss diet, like Mr. Vikrant is telling about 15% weight loss, you may find that now you are just nicely controlled with the diet and exercise. You are not requiring any medicine. But I will reserve the word cure for type 2 diabetes for the time being. I will rather tell about care and control.
Right. Manage it well with the resources that you have. Coming back to Mr. Shrotriya. Mr. Shrotriya, do you think that pharmaceutical options in weight management will discourage people to adopt lifestyle modifications such as going to, exercising and caring about their nutrition aspect or looking, if one thinks that if I'm taking medicines, then, I can not do physical exercise or not look at the nutritional aspect while eating or.
I think the pharmacotherapy which are actually coming and emerging in the scene or in the horizon, they are not the therapies that have a party and take an injection of anti-obesity. I think that is not the kind of a thing which is supposed to be there. If at all, they should be motivating more. Now, what happens? Think of a scenario that somebody is doing diet and exercise, and when they take a pharmacotherapy, now they are trying to take all the kind of angles by which obesity reduction can happen. The reduction which will happen will be so motivating. Okay, and it will not only be the reduction just in the body weight, but also in the other vital parameters of the body. That most of the time, what we have seen is that people actually become more motivated. They become much more careful about what they eat and how they really act or behave, and they change their lifestyle. So normally we have seen that an early weight reduction with the help of pharmacotherapy can act as a huge motivator. But I will not say no, that sometimes some misguided people can also find it as you can say, a recipe for the cheat meal. They can eat whatever they want to take and can have this medication. But I would say that's a wrong notion, and I don't think so. Most of the people, when we have come across, they think it that way.
Dr. Bhattacharya talked about the injectable of semaglutide, and that might be more beneficial than the oral drug. Tell us about that. When are we supposed to expect it in the market? Are you working towards that?
Injectable semaglutide actually has been received very, very well. It has been only launched in the US and now in the country of origin, Denmark, and one more country. And the good part is that the medical fraternity has received it very well. And there has been such a reception because the results have been fantastic in terms of treating obesity. Now, this also makes that the supply part of it is not that optimum at this point of the time because the demand has surpassed our expectation. And that makes it possible only to launch sometime in 2025, somewhere in Q4 2025, given the supply constraints which we have got for this particular medication. But I can tell you, I am waiting for it, given the kind of, you can say, the burden which obesity has got in India. I think India needs some kind of a solution for obesity. And I hope and wish that it comes earlier.
Right, right. When we compare the oral with the injectable, you talked about oral being somewhere around 15 to 16%, but Dr. Bhattacharya said that it will be more effective. So that percentage with the injectable goes up, or does it remain the same? The effectiveness goes up.
What is the I would not. I would say that first of all, the oral semaglutide has not been indicated just for obesity.
Yeah,
so we have not done classical. We have still not filed for oral semaglutide in obesity, right? But yes, the injectable semaglutide is indicated in obesity. So of course, the data is very clean that injectable semaglutide in higher strength is actually for obesity, and the results are fantastic. So I don't think so the comparison is fair, but as a diabetes drug, it has helped many a diabetic patient in terms of reducing weight, and that is fantastic because you treat glycemic control and then you reduce weight. And Dr. Arpandev can tell you that with every 1 kg, even the glycemic control becomes much more better, which he just alluded to. So I think we are talking about two different comparisons. This particular drug we are waiting, oral sema, we are waiting when it gets indicated for weight reduction in higher strength.
Right, right. Dr. Bhattacharya, let me come back to you for one more question. There are, constructive treatments, reconstructive treatments, I beg your pardon, like fat liposuction. Do you think belly fat liposuction will affect type 2 diabetes?
No, absolutely not. Because the belly fat section is that you are taking out the fat below the skin. That is not our concern. Our concern is the visceral fat, amount of fat that is there in between the intestine, surrounding the pancreas, the kidney, the adrenal gland. Those are the fats we are talking. You cannot remove those fat by liposuction. So liposuction is purely a cosmetic thing. Right. It will not help our diabetes management.
Right, right. Mr. Shrotriya, we've discussed about this drug for diabetes and weight reductions as well. So, what is your expectation from Indian market with respect to the adoption of this drug, semaglutide? What is the current demand like? Tell us about that.
I think one thing which is very, very important is India is a pharmacy of the world. So first, we have got treatment for diabetes in spectrum. We have got basic insulin, then we have got new generation insulin, we have got modern insulins. And when we brought this medication, innovation, I'm also very happy that on one side, insulin for masses, which was taken and which is very, very cheap. But on the other side, the adoption of this innovation has been fantastic. This has been one of our very, very good launches in India. And this is very motivating when Prime Minister Modi talks about innovate in India and innovation in India. I think this gives a boost because this is the same product which has been trial. We have done clinical trial in India. So India has been part of this innovation journey for oral semaglutide. And when we launched it, the medical fraternity has embraced this drug. I have not seen that kind of a success with our earlier launches. It has been amazing. And the kind of success story which I have come across for, HbA1c reduction, along with that, a weight reduction, I think they give a sense of satisfaction to us. The important thing is not that how many patients really take it. The important part is that do people who deserve the best, they get the access for this particular molecule. And I think we are more than satisfied with the adoption of this oral semaglutide in India.
Right, right. Dr. Bhattacharya himself, kind of said about how the semaglutide is kind of more effective, and the injectable will be even effective. Dr. Bhattacharya, concluding this conversation, what would you say? Your key takeaways in terms of what should people do? What's the message that you want to give out in terms of how should they manage diabetes, how should they manage their weight, how should they take medicines, or which medicines they should take, in terms of, there is semaglutide, are there any other options available? So all in all, tell us your overview in terms of a message where how should people going forward should manage diabetes and overweight, obesity.
So we are talking about type 2 diabetes. Let's make it very clear. We are talking not about type 1 diabetes. We are talking about type 2 diabetes. And here the main important that it should not be only looking at the blood sugar. We need a holistic management. We need to maintain the weight. We need to maintain the blood pressure. We need to keep the lipid parameter control. Our nutritional status should be right. We should be doing regular exercise. And also we need to keep a close eye on the different organ complications, particularly when we talk about eye, the kidneys, and the heart. It's very important. The cardiac disorder, the chance of cardiac disorder at least 3 to 5 times more in people with type 2 diabetes than in the general population. So it's very, very important. So our first line of treatment will be a lifestyle, therapeutic lifestyle changes, what we call TLC. So taking food in the correct time, taking the optimum amount of food, taking correct amount of fiber, a spacing of the meal, eating some fresh vegetable and fresh fruit every day, drinking adequate amount of water. Second one, keep yourself active. That's very, very important. Activity is a relative term depending on your age, your condition, your work status, your economic status, your whatever comorbidity problem is there. For example, somebody has a knee osteoarthritis. I can't tell just go for a brisk walk every day. We'll have to find out a different formula. For example, different asanas this person can do as a part of an exercise. And then comes your therapy. So therapy will have to highlight on 3 points. Number 1, glucose control. Number 2, organ protection. Mr. Vikrant was telling that giving some medicine to protect the heart problem, kidney problem. And third will be here as of current situation now about breaking this link between obesity and diabetes. And this is very important. I totally agree with Dr. Vikrant. The reason the medical fraternity or people like me have taken up this group of molecule because till now we didn't have anything. Whatever medicine is available for it was they don't work. And this is one was working really wonderfully. And good news is that tolerance of this medicine is pretty good. A few percentage of the people have an upper GI problem like a reflux disorder, acidity, but usually the time goes off. But otherwise, tolerance of medicine is good. Agree totally. At this point, cost is a bit more, but this depends on the sponsor or the molecule that is not in our field. But we are really very happy that to proceed in this line of treatment with lifestyle, glucose control, cardiorenal protection, plus obesity, looking after the reduction of the weight.
Right, right. Your message, Mr. Shrotriya.
For me, I always give one simple message to act now. And act now is not only for individual, it is also for the family, for the government. Try taking this seriously. Just because half the population is overweight and quite a lot of population has got diabetes, don't take it normal. And I always say that diet, exercise, and medication when required should be the part of overall approach towards the people who deserve it. And I think everybody has to play this part, like the way you are actually playing the part of creating some awareness about it. And I think this should continue. The more we do, the more the demand is in India. We are a country of 1.4 billion, and we have got 77 million people with diabetes, 135 million people with obesity. I think they deserve some attention. They deserve some serious considerations. Thank you.
Right. So diet, exercise, and medication, and act now is the message. Thank you. On that note, I would like to conclude this. Thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya. Thank you, Mr. Shrotriya, for joining us here and enlightening us with your views on diabetes and obesity. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.